Well, welcome everyone to the Bay ICT Tech Talk. Today is April 20th, and we've got as our guest speaker today, Jimmy Sanders, and I'm going to do a really quick intro, and then Jimmy's going to take it over with a little short presentation. But I met Jimmy even before I knew he was the San Francisco president of the San Francisco chapter of ISSA, because he was always our gracious host at Day in the Life of Netflix, which was always such a blast. And then I joined the chapter and find out that he's president, and he's just an incredible leader relative to bringing professionals together to network. And he was recently elected to the board of ISSA International. So great, congratulations, Jimmy. So I'll turn it over to you. Let me make you co-host. There we go. All right, you're set.
So let me know when you can see my slides.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So as Olivia was saying, I'm the current president for the San Francisco chapter of ISSA. I'm also a board member of ISSA International, and I'm a board member of a group called the Information Security Leaders Foundation, as well as advising other community colleges and organizations throughout the Bay Area. I'm just titling this the tip of the spear because unfortunately, even today in April 20th, 2021, I do things where I'm still the only person there. And it's always funny. I'll take that back. Not the only person there. I'm still the only Black person, and a lot of times a Black male there. So it's still kind of weird for me. For instance, I'll be one of the keynotes for RSA 2021 this year. And if you look at the list of keynotes and noted speakers, I'm the only Black face that happens to be there at this time. So who is this even open to? I always try to get this out the way, because one of the things that Olivia mentioned, but we don't really talk about too much in our organizational careers, is my day job that pays the bills is for Netflix DVD. I run the security for DVD.com. And as usual, I'm also associated with ISSA. None of the views that I'm saying are directly from Netflix or from DVD.com or from ISSA. I want to just get that out the way. This is about me and my opinions and what's happened. Throughout my career, I started of computers in 1999 as an intern that turned into an administrator. I still remember the Y2K bug. So for those of you who are old enough, you understand the Y2K bug. And so that's a little about me. I've worked at some big companies, small companies, wide range of companies. I got my degree after years in San Jose State University. One of the things that I show is the first slide when I do my presentations or when I introduce people about me. The one slide that I generally don't show people is that I didn't graduate San Jose State till 2005. I graduated high school in 1993. So there's this 12-year gap where I was finding my way, finding my motivation to figure out what was my passion in life. And as you can see, I grew up in a small town in Texas, population 70,000. So imagine me coming to California and going like to Alameda or San Francisco and seeing other people there. It was very life-changing. And so what does that even mean, right? So one of the things that I found about my passion is that I'm much, much more motivated when I get to work with others of like-minded who want to do things on a positive level, who want to be together, who want to do things in an inclusive way. And so Olivia may have mentioned this, but one of the amazing inclusive events that I'm happy to be a part of is the Tech Workforce Collaborative. And we get these amazing Bay Area organizations like Bay ICT, Women in E-Discovery, of Cyber Trust America. And, as you can see, the list of people, and each one of us is just want to give back to the community and to get you into tech, get you a job in tech, or advance your career in technology. So one of the things that I had to realize earlier in my career is that no matter how good you think you have it, as you said, I've always had that 12-year gap that took me from high school to graduating to university. So I'm always understanding that I have this certain 5 minutes of fame. Honestly, my 5 minutes of fame should have been up about 10 minutes ago. But luckily, I'm still riding it a little bit. But in the back of my head and in my understanding, I'm realizing that, hey, you always have to be gracious and appreciative and be thankful for working with amazing people like Olivia and other people in various organizations as well. One of the things that I realized was one of my superhero powers after I talked to Chris and Ryan was determination. Um, I'm determined to do stuff even if people haven't done it quite before. Um, One of my rules is obstacles. It confronts us all. And, some just have more than others. And I remember I was talking to one of my great friends and she was reiterating, it was like a swimming pool. All of us are trying to get to the other end of the lane. We're all in the same swimming pool together. However, some people in the swimming pool, they may have, trainers and coaches watching their stroke, and they may have wetsuits or what have you. You may unfortunately have one arm that you can swim with, or you may not have a coach, or you may not have the best swimsuit, but we all together are still trying to get to the end of the lane. And regardless of how you get there, you're always going to have some form of obstacle. It's how you deal with it and how you overcome it and that determination that you have. And I'm definitely a determined person. The other thing that I talk to people, and hopefully you'll be asking me questions later on, especially in technology, is I have to reiterate, life is not fair. Technology is not fair. We don't care in technology that you may have worked 80 hours on a project if you didn't complete the project. We care if you worked on a project and completed the project, if you worked on a mission and you completed the mission, if you worked on code and you completed it. Working for your degree and graduating 3/4, not graduating, and dropping out 3/4 into your, process. We don't care if you almost got your degree. Don't even put that on your resume. Make sure you do achievements along the way. And that's why one of the things that I did along my journey is I actually got a junior college degree as well. So just some advice, and understand that, and what I mean by as you progress, the race starts over. After you graduate high school, you start over. Now you compete with people in college. After you graduate college, now you start all over. Now you're competing with other people in the industry. As you progress in the industry, you're no longer competing with, if you're head of security, you're no longer competing with an engineer. You're competing, or you're partnering, you're racing against, you're dealing with your peers on other levels. So as the race progresses, as you progress, the race starts over. And unfortunately, nobody wants excuses, because you can't say, this is my first time being the president of the United States. It's always everybody's first time to do something in life. So one of the things that you will see about me and Olivia, I'm always trying to be open, honest, and transparent. But one of the things that I like to do also is get a lot of people together and work behind the scenes. And if you don't know the story of Jerry Weintraub, you definitely should read this book. He is such a motivation for me. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but he was the guy who first took Elvis on tour. He did the comeback of my Frank Sinatra's comeback when Frank Sinatra actually was in the ring in New York City boxing. Jerry Weintraub, amazing individual, had so many careers, so many twists and turns. And that's sort of like me. I've had many careers where I was working. I started off, before I got into technology, I was a baker. I was a warehouse worker. I was a machine operator. When I first got into technology, I only did IT. I thought that security was for the super elite, the super smart people. I didn't think that that was something that I could ever do. But as I was saying before, the thing in life that you'll always realize is determination will get you where just luck won't take you. I never like the word luck, or, oh, it's easy, because even if it's easy, you still got to work at it. Even if you have a certain talent or certain aptitude, if you fail to fill that aptitude and work at it, you'll always be almost the best, almost good. And so I would just want to leave you with that. And then my final slide that I always try to leave with, because people tend to ask me this a lot, is they always like, Jimmy, what's your favorite Netflix episode? And I always harken back to this one right here. So this is Altered Carbon, the first season. And what this is showing is in Altered Carbon, they implant your soul into a chip in your brain, into a body. So your body is just a piece, piece of flesh. Your soul is what counts, except they can hack into your soul and put your soul in a computer and they run war games against you. In this example, a computer is trying to break into his brain and control his brain, and he's trying to break out of it. And so he's playing war games with himself. And to me, when we work on our career, when we're doing all of these things, we're playing so many head games with ourselves. There are so many, I talk to a lot of security leaders and a lot of my peers, and especially in your first few years of development, you feel imposter syndrome. You feel like, oh, I got here because of luck. Oh, because what ends up happening is you'll reach heights that you may not have thought you could reach, where your peers may not have gotten those opportunities. And you may think to yourself, I got there because I'm lucky. Luck doesn't get you there year after year after year. Luck gets you there for your first opportunity, not your fifth opportunity, not your 10th opportunity. And so always understand that we're always, each of us are playing war games, mind games with ourselves and with our peers and with our adversaries. What you want to do is you want to take control of your mind, take control of your motivation, and ensure that you determine your fate and don't let other people and other outside influences negatively influence your decisions and how you want to achieve your goals in life. And so with that, that was just my simple presentation. I'm Jimmy Sanders. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Ask me any questions you want. I'm here ready.
And before Jimmy starts to answer questions, I just also want to let you all know that the Tech Workforce Collaborative event on April 27th, you can go to the Bay ICT website, and it's on the first page as an event that we're promoting. And let me tell you, that idea, it was a little bit of background about that event. It was all of the organizations in the Bay Area, like Bay ICT, like ISSA, like ISSA and IC Square, and all of those that Jimmy had on the slide were saying they all have a desire to address this talent gap and do it in an inclusive way. And the thing is that we have a lot of folk that want to break into cybersecurity and information security, and the first term that we came up with was, well, how do we help them figure it out? And the whole thing is that we have a network here, and we want to add more folks to that network, because I tell you, one of the most important things that you can do in breaking into this career is to get to know as many people, either like yourself, that are you can do the journey with, and then can be your mentors and connections and peers. And there's going to be a good group of people at that event on the 27th for you to come check it out. And it's late in the afternoon, so hopefully you'll be able to join. But I promise you, you'll make some really great connections, get some really great ideas if you come and interact with the panels that we have there. So anyway, so that's my promo for the event on the 27th. And now we'll open it up for interview that you either can, we have a small group, kind of really small group tonight. So either there's a few of us that we're, you can either open up your mic to ask a question, or you can put it in chat. Don't be shy.
Okay, well, hey, I won't be shy. Hi, this is Tim Ryan, and I do have a question. I'm actually an instructor of cybersecurity at Foothill College, so I am very much in favor of the overall mission that we all have undertaken, and look forward to getting more students into our programs and into the field. And I guess my question would be, how do we, it's already a bit of a challenge to get people specifically into cybersecurity, but do we want to put out a message to make it more broader, to get them into information technology or ICT in general? and
So
maybe
that
steer
was,
them towards security? Because we have to be pretty broad, and who knows 5 years from now what skills they may truly need.
so that was actually, that's why we call it the Tech Force Collaborative. It's
Mhm.
for technology and not security specific. Because of, as Olivia alluded to, I remember the first time I did the day in the life at Netflix. And the day in the life is this thing that I thought up where I was like, everybody is always asking me, what is it like to work for Netflix? So I was like, okay, why not just invite students to the campus for a day so they can see what it's like to actually be at Netflix for a day. So we did that. And the first time I did it, I only did it with security practitioners. So imagine the students' eyes by the third time they heard about some security solution when they were in like business information systems, their eyes would glaze over. So I realized that it's not enough just to get them in security, just get them the passionate or the opportunity to get into technology itself. So I'm wholeheartedly agree with you, Tim. Security isn't for everyone, but the one thing I can tell people about technology is it changes your life. The way it's people like travel, you could travel the world, you meet amazing people. It's not a fluke that the top like 5 billionaire richest people in the world are in technology. The amount of money you can make doing technology, let's known security, is amazing. And the talent, I mean, and the shortage of the jobs that we're looking for is not going away anytime soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Olivia again. I was remiss. I failed to introduce my co-facilitator, Lauren. I'm so sorry. Lauren Ayala is has joined me as co-facilitator for the Tech Talks, and I was looking right at her picture, and I says, "Oh my gosh, I didn't introduce Lauren." But anyway, Lauren is a collaborator again with Bay ICT and Next Gen cyber partners. And so I thought of her because Lauren is going to watch the chat box with me too. But we do have one, Jimmy, from Ron Twist. It says a comment, the imposter syndrome is definitely real. Any actionable tips to help relieve some of that feeling for someone who is trying to make a lateral move from a non-IT field into an entry cybersecurity role?
Oh yeah, that's an amazing question. And one of the things that I've seen from people who have the confidence is that they've done it before. And the only way for you to do it before is for you to keep trying and to realize, bang your head against the solution sometimes and fail. When you fail and you see what it's like let's say you work on some code, and I would advise everybody in your free time, work on some code, work on something. Work on something. It may not succeed the first time, but when you can build up the stamina and the wherewithal to be able to work on a project and to see it through to where you actually complete it, then you get that you get that momentum. You understand that when you can break some down and reconstruct it after doing it 100 times, you don't feel like you're an imposter. You can oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, I can do that. When you can get that level of confidence, and it could be in something small, such as writing a bash script, writing a little piece of code, whatever it is. There is so much free training out on the web where your determination, your motivation has to kick in. You will always have imposter syndrome when you want to get spoon fed. When you start getting that hunger yourself, when you start teaching yourself how to fish, how to code, how to do those things, then you're like, I can do this because I can do this. I've done this. And only until you do it, you'll always not know if you can do it. That's, how do you know you can swim? By swimming, type of thing.
We've got another one here. What tech certifications are in demand these days, and which ones pay the most? I'm thinking
Okay.
the lines of OSCP or reverse engineering.
Okay. So, Eric, I can tell you from the last piece of your question, if I was your mentee, I would tell you you're shooting at the wrong target. You never shoot at the certification that pays the most. You want to shoot at the certification that motivates you the most, that gets you fired up. Because what ends up happening is and Olivia was laughing because she was talking about the Y2K bug. I've seen the cycle of certs go up and down. I remember when it used to pay the most to have a Microsoft certified professional cert or an Oracle certification or this certification. But when those things went out, who cared what cert you have? What matters the most is you pick up the certs that you're motivated in, and you demonstrate to your employers what your value is by obtaining those certs. The certs themselves don't pay you anything. In computer security, you can get the CISSP. It is one of the top paying certs, but you don't get the CISSP for the money. You get it for the broad range of knowledge that you will get along the way. Nope. So certs expire, but they really don't expire as well. So it's. I mean, you could game that system because depending on how you've been grandfathered. I know a lot of people let their certs expire, but that was that. But you're right. Degrees don't. And my whole thing. That's why every one of my degrees that I got, not everyone, but I got 3. I sent to my mother because I like, here you go, mama. You know, because I was a mama's boy, so. You're right. And all my certs I kept, but my degrees my mother got.
So Jimmy, I had a question. So when it comes into terms with certifications for industry, and say your certification does expire, I've worked for plenty of people that were my IT director and they're Novell certified, right? They're way back when, and that's a long time ago. Is it typical that just because your certificate expires that, you know, you normally need to go and renew it for industry? Or is it normally once you've had it and it's expired, it's kind of been retained knowledge and it's kind of like grandfathered in? Do you find yourself having to renew certifications a lot?
Luckily, because I'm on a lot of organizations, I get a lot of credit, so I don't have to worry about that much. But depending on where you are in your career and if that certification is applicable, you may want to renew it or not renew it. Because every year, every cert you have, you pay at least like $120 per cert every year just to renew it. So some people, if they have 6 certs, they're paying $600 a year. They may feel like it's not worth it anymore, especially if you've moved into different industries. So, you know, but to answer your question, and even to this day, even though I'm being recorded, I've never seen an employee actually ask to see my certification itself. Now, I've never, you know, you can look up my certifications and you know, you can look up anybody's certifications, but I've never actually had an employee ask me, Jimmy, do you really have a CISSP? You know.
Well, I can second that. I have a few certifications myself, some of which are probably expired by now, but I've never had an employer actually ask to see them, which is interesting.
But it goes back almost to that integrity thing, and that's something I firmly believe in, and it goes back to transparency, is that if I actually didn't maintain a cert, I would say passed in my resume, like past CISP or past ISM or something. And yes, certificates are important, but not really important, to Jacob's question. And the reason why I say that is because certificates are important because it shows your motivation and you actually completed something. It doesn't mean that you're the most knowledgeable on the subject, but it does show that you actually, when you start something, you complete something.
Exactly.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah, and so I see Jim Kim had a question. And, you know, what was the most interesting, shocking thing of working in information security at Netflix? And I tell this story and people, if you're not in the industry, you won't find it shocking until you get there. And that's, we have our motto, our creed at Netflix is freedom and responsibility. And that means we'll give you the freedom to do what you think you need to do because we hire experts who will hold you responsible for that. And you'll take that and you're on the hiring, you're in the interview and you say, oh, that sounds great. Freedom and responsibility. I've always wanted that from my employer. I've always wanted that, you know, and I've worked for a lot of companies that had mottos. They didn't live by those mottos. You come to Netflix, they live by the models, but that's where they give you enough rope to hang yourself. So essentially what that means is that if you come into your job, and let's say you're a database administrator, and you think you need root access or administrative access to a system to do your job, even if it's against security rules, we'll give that to you because we think you're the expert. We'll give you the freedom to do that. But one of the things that you'll look at, you'll see Netflix has a high firing rate because if we give you that access and you mess it up, we also hold you responsible for that. So it was one of the few companies that I've worked at where not only did we hold you responsible, but we don't believe in what's called champions. You work at a lot of companies where they have that one rock star person who can pretty much do no wrong, even if they yell at somebody or they do bad things, they can get it covered up or something. Like at Netflix, you just get cut. Like if you're not a team player, we think we hire nothing but top people anyway. So you're a rock star among rock stars. So who cares? If you're a butt, you got to go. So that was one of the most shocking things from a Netflix perspective. Obviously, from a security perspective, you have everybody and their cousin on free accounts and want to hack you to say they hacked Netflix. So you're dealing with every type of attack. You're dealing with every type of vendor. It's a wild, wild west, but it's an amazing roller coaster, especially if you like constant change because the attacks are always changing. And so my threat models and the way I conduct threats has to change with it.
Hey, Jimmy, this is Tim again. So I think one thing that I try to spend a lot of time doing is determining what material to present to my students. And I'd kind of like some input from you, I guess, on that. There's headlines, right, about sanctions against Russia or whatever, but is that really the lesson? Maybe there's something deeper in there. Supply chain attack, that's interesting. But I even brought up the issue of Julian Assange. It was years ago, but he worked with at the time Bradley Manning. They committed a conspiracy by working together, and that when we are dealing with computer crimes, the lesson there is conspiracy is makes it worse. So even though it was 5 years ago, I was able to make that a kind of a valuable lesson. And so I always wonder, do we teach like milestones in cybersecurity that go back some period of time, or do we focus on a lot of the current events and try to put those front and center in terms of lesson plans?
I would say in terms of base building, the Julian Assange thing is a great example of collusion and what type of security solution you have in place. And what I mean by that is that regardless of whether it's current, past, or what have you, if you build a security solution where one person can get the keys to the castle and do everything and be undetected, that's a bad fundamental security solution. If you don't have a true security in layers approach, where that one new, for instance, right now in the news, there's this Pulse VPN attack that's happening all over the place, right? Yeah, that's bad. But if you have one security solution that is protecting you from the bad guys, and the bad guys break that one solution, then they get the keys to the kingdom. To me, that's bad security architecture. So by talking about collusion, by talking about security in layers, those holistic principles never go away. Because if you have collusion, no matter what security of circles or tools I put in place, anybody can get through it. So the Julian Assange of example or perfect examples to me. If you layered with a baseline approach, and then you bring in the new perspective, for instance, like the Microsoft Exchange server attacks, or I was on a panel with the CEO of SolarWinds, and he was talking about how SolarWinds has changed their habits and their security practices, and instead of them doing one repo of GitHub code, they're actually doing two now, and then they're checking the sum so that if a hacker gets one, it doesn't affect the other one. that may sound groundbreaking, but if you think about it, that's just simply, once again, not having all your eggs in one basket, doing security in layers. And so whenever you look at security solutions or a solution that says, we will use this one repo, we will do this one thing, we will have this one type of firewall, you're just waiting for the next unknown vulnerability of that one solution to break through your whole castle. If that answers your question, Tim.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. The building blocks are important, and you know, build up in things and the underlying principles. And I emphasize concepts, you know, because I've found concepts are retained more than command lines type things. So
Yep.
yeah, I think that I appreciate your analogy and some of the information you shared with respect to that.
And then, you know, to what Bob was asking to everyone is in terms of what software I use. And this goes back to security as business, and security enables the business and not security dictates the business. I use whatever software the company I happen to work with works on. So what that means is when I started off my career, I was mainly a Windows guy. I was a Windows IT administrator. And now I'm well-versed in AWS, cloud, Linux. You know, you put me in front of some systems and I can go to work, but I make the team, I make myself, I make the tools that we use work with the business instead of saying, oh, I don't like that product, or oh, this product isn't good. So in this day and age, it's a lot of, especially if you want to do automation, which I'm the king of automation. I'm not king, I'm a king advocate of automation. And I would encourage every you to understand that, what I mean by automation, because when you can multiply yourself, that's how you can demand lots of money. And when you can start doing that, you know, just like figuring out if you do something more than once, figure out how to multiply that, how to do it in an automated fashion so that you can kick back and, you know, do it a little easier. And then, you know, open source tools, major limitations. Yes, there's a lot of major limitations from open source tools, but I would actually change that to tools, period. Because as we've seen from the SolarWinds attack, as we've seen from the Microsoft Exchange attack, as we've seen from OpenSSL issues, when they're not properly vetted, when they're not properly run through security checks, any tool will have issues, especially when you're leveraging in this day and age where we have a website and that website may have 20 plugins from 20 different open source tools and even closed source tools, because a lot of the libraries now are, you pay for them. So whether it's open source or closed source, just there are always not limitations, but issues you should address with yourself, your team, and your company in terms of the tools that you currently happen to use.
So Jimmy, I had another question. Based upon all of your experience, you're into a lot of different things and your career has definitely changed trajectories. What is your next step as far as career goals for yourself? Where do you see yourself going?
So that's a great question. So one of the things that I didn't realize, or I never thought I would realize, and I would talk to, whether regardless of your career path, is understanding how technology companies actually work, right? So I always thought of myself as an employee of working, and even if I started my own company, I would start a company and I would be the next Bill Gates, whatever, right? But working and living in the Valley, and especially in my last like 4 to 5 years, I've gotten to know a lot of venture capitalists. And so understanding that venture capitalists don't necessarily put the money where the best product is. Venture capitalists put the money where they can get the best return on their money. And it may mean that you have the best product, or it may mean that you have the best CEO who can sell the product the best. So one of the things that I've been doing with venture capitalists is actually hopefully point to where the money is going. Because one of the things that I see, especially as being an African-American man, is that a lot of the venture capitalists I know don't know Black people. Like, I work with a lot of Israeli startups, and I work with a lot of Silicon Valley startups, and, there's not a lot of Black people in Israel. But the thing is, when I start working with them and they start understanding, and talking to them, they're always open to it. It's not that they don't want to give money. They want to find the best bang for the buck. So my next path, what I'm, and even currently want to do, is work with venture capitalists to ensure that the money they spent is spent on the best product. And if I happen to make the best product, that remains to be seen. But right now, for what I'm doing now, I work with my peers to find out what's the good products that don't get illuminated, that may be underfunded, that may be losing because, and then find a way to either get them some venture capitalist advice or get them some venture capitalist training. Because one of the things that happens when you get with good venture capitalists is not only will they give you an infusion of money, but they'll on top of that give you maybe, you don't have to worry about HR. We'll handle your HR for you because your core competency is building technology environments. So we'll do your HR for you, or we'll do your recruiting for you, or we'll find your next executive for you. Because generally they're especially when you first start off, they're picking high-powered, star-studded executives. And that's the other thing that I'm trying to change, because when you look at the high-powered, star-studded executives, they tend to be all, unfortunately still now, buddy of 3 or 4 people who used to know each other, and they're super cool with each other. But the problem is there's no diversity and there's no inclusion from the beginning. Now, they may work at that as time goes on, but, and that's not to knock them, because they're in the business of making some money. But when they first start off, generally it's just them and their small clique of people they can trust, because you're not going to take a flyer on trying to do diversity when you first start a company to somebody you don't trust and you don't know can deliver the results. So those are the things that I'm actively trying to work on with venture capitalists as we speak. And do everybody know about like the venture capitalist game and things of that nature? Any questions about that?
I'm not sure about everyone else's familiarity, but if you wanted to give a brief overview, I would appreciate it.
Okay. I mean, so honestly, it's just about valuations and not about realistic expectations. And what I mean by that is every CEO, you're gonna have every security vendor, every technology vendor, they're gonna say they're here to make the world a better place. They're here to, make your company safer. Really, they think that their solution can make your company safer because they've thought of a new solution that can make them a lot of money. That is not currently out there. They're building a better widget. And that's nothing to knock on the people making the product, because a lot of them, yes, VCs in terms of not necessarily technology startups, but technology startups actually get their money from venture capitalists. So they're the power brokers of the technology industry. A company is made or broke because they didn't get money from a venture capitalist. And so what ends up happening is the venture companies always have these series rounds where they're going around trying to raise money. And so they're always pitching their company to a venture capitalist, because every company wants to say, oh, I'm sponsored by Google Ventures, I'm sponsored by Samsung Venture, I'm sponsored by Bain Capital, I'm sponsored by all these big venture capitalists. And what that does is when you're a small company and you're sponsored by these big companies and you're going into another big company trying to sell your product, it gives you a mystique. It gives you, some more power, because that says, if Google can trust me, if Samsung Ventures can trust me, then guess what? You should be able to trust me too, because they trusted me with millions of dollars. And so it builds that momentum, because every company starts off small. I remember watching the Facebook as it was going through, being super small, and it was watching it do its thing. And so understanding how the venture capitalist game works, and also being into the venture capitalist game, because one thing to know about it, There's another thing to actually be able to talk to a venture capitalist, to influence that venture capitalist to put money in this sector, put money in this thing, instead of saying, oh, I wish this would have happened or whatever. Like, inject your system into the process. It's hard to do in the beginning, but what happens is if you can pick winners for a venture capitalist, trust me, they'll come back to you because all they care about is somebody who can help them make a lot of money. And then, you know, and on to, hopefully that addressed the venture capitalist question. And then the, you know, process for learning something new, peers, books, and lots and lots and lots of books. I remember my first job, as I said before, I was an intern starting off, and then I became an IT administrator. And I remember during my intern days, I would go to the IT, the CIO, and I would ask him a question. And then I wait, and then an hour later, I would go to him and ask him a question. And then he said, Jimmy, this is back in the old days of Windows. He said, here's this F1 button, figure it out. And back in the days, F1 simply meant help. And so he was telling me, don't keep asking me for help. You use the help button, you learn to fish. And so that's what I do now. I teach myself to code. And the other thing that I do is I give myself every year some big project to do, whether it's building a website or building my own mail server or trying to do some AI functionality, which is super duper hard. I haven't knocked that one out yet, but something that will make me incorporate some new tools and techniques into my wheelhouse so that I keep my tools sharp, but it's also something that's usable for me. And like I said before, I use my peer group to always ask around on what's the latest, greatest thing that's happening. Oh yeah, there's lots of concepts that I'm still having a hard time to understand, right? Of risk, how you evaluate risk, quantitative, qualitative risk. Because, you know, as I was saying, I'll be keynoting RSA this year. And my co-partner, Angela, she had this study in it, and she was like, if we actually did risk right, we would have predicted the outcome of this pandemic. But no, everybody thought that we would be back to work in April or July at the latest of last year because of what we thought was our risk profile. So if we actually knew how to handle risk properly, this should have been a shock to us as much as it was. And so I look at that. And the other thing about risk is that if you know about technology companies, they have a lot of customer service departments that they never let work from home. They always had them work in these offices because they thought that customer service would be so insecure that they would get all these viruses. Now, customer service works from home all the time. If you would have told any security practitioner a year and a half ago that everybody, including customer service, would be working from home, they would have told you you're crazy and would be filled with viruses nonstop. So the risk picture, what we term is and continues to be out of focus. And so what I'm trying to figure out, and along with almost everybody in the industry, is how do we realign risk to what's really risky, instead of what we say is risky, because everybody says it's risky. Everybody said customer service was risky, but it turns out it's not as risky as everybody else. Common attack you deal with on a daily basis, people trying to take over accounts to get free Netflix accounts. That's an easy one. Everybody wants free Netflix, or every attacker, you Google up free Netflix and you'll find 20,000 sites that'll say they're selling you free Netflix when it's probably not. How I stay current on technology and security trend events. I have an amazing network, Olivia. I belong to a lot of organizations. I'm always asking. I'm always saying, hey, what have you heard about? What are you seeing? I'm on various boards where we talk about these things. I'm also, as Olivia was saying, I'm now on the board of ISSA and ISSA International. And so with that, I'm chairing their innovative technologies division. So one of the things that we're doing is we're looking for emerging, innovative moonshot type technologies that won't even be out in 2 to 3 years, or won't be out till 2 to 3 years. So if you're looking for, if you're in security and you're looking for a site, one that I would recommend is that has a lot of different mailing lists from the old school, is seclist.org. That's one that I would go to and every so often to check out. Now I get a lot of my information directly from the source. So a company or my team will find something else like, Jimmy, oh, here's what we found here. So or Twitter's good, but Twitter is like a tidal wave or ocean. It comes and goes. So all of a sudden you'll get a lot of Twitter based on this one attack, and then it'll die down to the next attack. And so if you want historical information, you have to just start searching through Twitter. And then um, I don't talk about the products that I've actually worked on funding for, um, because me personally, because I'm on so many organizations, I don't make money off of my recommendations. And that's another reason why VCs like working with me. They're like, oh, Jimmy, we don't have to pay you, to be on our advisory board. We like that because I feel like my power of just being able to advise them is enough that I can steer them into the products that'll actually help my company win. So if you can Google Jimmy and board or advisory board of companies, and you can kind of see what type of companies I've advised with. I try my best not to get, I try not to say names of companies too much in just presentations, because, like if honestly, it's gotten to the point, if I mention the company's name, they'll use what I said in a news article. And then my company that I work for would be like, Jimmy, we didn't tell you could advertise for company X. So I have to watch that a lot of times. So the question is, how do we get invitations of VCs to present your business model? So first, you can't have just a model. You have to have something behind you. Either you have to have your reputation behind you, you have to have a team behind you, or you have to have a product behind you before you can go to a VC. It doesn't matter if you've written down on a piece of paper an amazing theory. VCs, once again, they don't care about theory. They care about making money at the end of the day. So you have to prove by a proven track record that you've made money doing a product before, or that you have a working model and you have a certain base behind you. For instance, let's say before you go to a VC, you need some people actually using your product, because VCs aren't just going to give you money without any users. But I've known some key executives who've gotten millions based on a concept of a product, but that's because they haven't had a proven track record. So that's the way you get in front of VCs, is you need to have a good network, you need to have your hustle game on, and you need to have a team behind you and a product behind you. Yeah, honestly, for a lot of people who are outside the VC game, it's a dark arts, and it's crazy how much money they make behind the scenes that we never even know about. I know so many millionaires off Facebook who never worked at Facebook or even bought shares of Facebook. Facebook, I remember Twilio, all of them coming up, their IPOs, VCs were. So what happens is when you go through series rounds, a venture capitalist actually can sell their stake in a company just so they can cash out and invest in another company. So, I've seen companies like Okta or Exonius where a VC has sold their stake, even though Exonius now is worth like 100 billion or something. They sold off their stake in Exonius because they're like, hey, I've did my moonshot. I've made my, 200 million. Now it's time to, because VCs are in it to make money. They're not in it for the long haul. So the longer they have to keep their money, it's like keeping your money in the bank. Yeah, it looks good in the bank, but if you can't do anything with it, what's the use? And so that's how VCs think. They're like, I got to get my money out, spend it, invest in some new companies, make a lot more millions. Oh no, they're back. No, they're backed by just being billionaires. So what ends up happening when you become a VC is, what happens is, I know a lot of ex CISOs, heads of security, ex CEOs. They end up, you make, let's say you work at a company, you've been there 10 years, His salary is between no, let's get a little higher, 400,000 to maybe 2 million a year, and you didn't spend it all. You know, you could. What'd you say?
You got
Olivia?
money.
Yeah. So you got money to start off with. Yeah, and so what you do as a VC to start off with is you become an angel investor. And an angel investor is somebody that they're not putting down millions. They may only put down 100,000. But if they put down 100,000 for Exonius 5 years ago, that's probably worth like 5 million right now. So now you're a 5 million, angel investor. Okay, what can you do with 5 million? Now I can be a real VC. So that's how the game works. It's like, but you can also lose that money. So, it's a, but I would definitely recommend everybody to at least look at how the venture capitalist game works. TechCrunch is a great place to look at that. Check it out. Because TechCrunch talks a lot about the VC game, but the VC game is one of the things, unfortunately, especially when I talk to my minority peers, that we don't have more conversations about, and we're not even in the game. My goal is to get us in the game. Like I want these companies winning. It's just so much money out there.
Well, to another advantage of watching what VCs are doing is trends, where you're seeing where things
Yes.
are going, what's going to be hot in a year or two. It's one way to look at it. Also, before we finish up here, I want to just recommend to those of you to join the local chapters of ISSA and ISACA as a student member. Because it's definitely worth it. I joined about 3.5 years ago, and there are a couple of students that would come to the meetings, and I run into them now, and they've got great jobs. They're like, each one reach one. I mean, so I really think that joining organizations like ISSA, and there's some interesting people, angel investors, etc., show up at those meetings sometimes too. So I would highly recommend. And I think, Jimmy, what is it, 95 a year?
Yeah. So one of the stories that I meant to tell but I didn't tell is my 69,500 story, and I maybe told that to some people, but people may not have heard it. When I first started working in computer security, doing my first review, they gave me a review and it was 69,000. I mean, they said, Jimmy, here's your new salary. You get a slight raise. It's going to be $69,500. And I asked them, just give me another $500 and I'll be so happy. I can call myself, I make $70,000 a year. I can brag to my wife. I can hoot the horn, because remember, I'm from a small town Texas, so nobody ever got anything close to that. They said, no, Jimmy, we can't do that. This is static. This is the way HR works. It's a percentage policy. Kind of, obviously now I realize they could have done whatever they wanted to. So long story short, during this time I had joined ISSA. Next to me was the CISO for First Republic Bank. Next to me on the other side was the head of ran security for HP Enterprises. And you start listening to salaries, you start listening to peers. I'm at this ISA thing and it's only 20 people there. And I'm like, why isn't it 100 people there? Because of all the knowledge that you end up getting. A month later, after that review, and I took my next job, I went from $69,500 to $110,000. But I would have never thought that I could go there and do that, because I didn't know what the pool was like. My network wasn't big enough. I was just a single person who thought that what the company was giving me was what I should take. When you work with your peers and they're like, man, you are so underpaid. Do you not realize how much you could make? And so that's why I tell people my 69,500 story, because
There's so many benefits to networking in organizations like that. I just can't tell you. And then again, like I said, not to keep touting our tech workforce collaborative, but that's the whole reason, is to make those kind of connections, to expose you to what these opportunities are and connect with folks. So hopefully you guys check that out. Obviously it's a virtual event and it's only like an hour and a half. So please do check it out. Any other final questions? We're at 7 o'clock now. Any last questions that we didn't, anyone didn't get a chance to ask?
It was great to talk with everybody.
Thank you so much.
Of course, Olivia. And make sure you check out Olivia's podcast of when she does it with Hacker Valley. My Hacker Valley podcast will be coming out. I'll be keynoting RSA. If you have a chance, check out RSA. And please reach out to me on LinkedIn as well.
All right.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, everyone. And again, this will be recorded and hope we'll please join us for our next talk on next Tuesday, which will be Ariana Whitlet from OCTA to talk about risk and compliance. You'd ask that risk question, Jimmy.
Yes, because that's the question. Like, if we're so good at risk, why didn't anybody pick this? But you know, it was great, Olivia, and I'll be talking to you shortly.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.